Welcome to Under Two Capes. I'm Jared, and today, first off, it's just me today. Like to make it, he's still completing his schoolwork for the semester, so we'll hopefully be back to normal this week. But so for this week, I thought so. I get into debates all the time about the Snyderverse. Did Zack Snyder do right by his interpretation of the DCEU and such? So I thought, okay, so how would I do a DCEU if I were in charge of it? What order would I put the movies and such? So without further ado, if I were in charge of the DCEU for Warner Brothers, here's what I would do in terms of what movies I would release and in what order, which characters I would include, and so forth. So before I get into that, I just want to say that this week we're going to be getting right back into a schedule for the episodes. Chiefly, we're going to have we're going to start the Halo show first. We're going to start Halo, and then next week we'll start the Star Wars show. So Halo is going to be uploaded to, should be on Tuesday. X-Men will be back. Obviously, on Two Capes is going to be on. This will, once again, I'm done, so I'm just going to start doing the episodes now. So, further ado, here is Jared's DCEU. So what we'll do is, as I'm going through that, I'll discuss my thinking, and then at the end of it, I'll discuss further. And this is just phase one, and if we're using MCU terminology. So what I'm starting with, I'm going to start with a grounded movie, and that would be starting with Deathstroke. He would be my first superhero, my first movie in the DCEU. Now, why am I doing it this way? For number one, like I said here, it grounds the universe. It gives us a nice grounded character that we can use to introduce the concepts of other characters. Like in here, he would hear about some Kryptonian heroes, something happening underwater, the central city, as he does his jobs in the movie. And this movie would include like all his kids, Wintergreen, etc., everyone like that. And then this movie would also feed into Batman. So Batman would be my second movie. And now, like I said, the end credit scene. So it would basically be a Ben Affleck Batman movie. It would also be sort of serve like a pseudo another adaptation for the Deathstroke movie. What I mean by that is that this would be taking place during the Deathstroke movie, but from Batman's perspective. And then it ends with a battle between Deathstroke and Batman, with Batman coming on top. So what this does is it introduces the idea of, okay, so here's our first Justice League member. I want to start with Batman. And then the end credit scene is you see this one mild-mannered reporter, you could say, watching the news coverage of the Batman incident. He turns around, starts walking toward the camera, and then he opens the shirt, and then it's Superman. And then that's where we get Superman, which basically what I mean here by update the power bases is you start to add in that god tier level characters, which is what the DC is known for. No matter what you want to say, Superman is basically a god in this universe. So you introduce that, and that way you introduce the idea of hope in the DCEU, because in the previous two, Batman and Deathstroke, you introduce like very non-hopeful characters. So in the Superman movie, you basically take a heel turn and start bringing in more positive like portrayals of superheroes and such. Then from the Superman movie, we bring in Wonder Woman. In other words, I wanted to establish the Trinity first. So Wonder Woman gets her movie. That's where we introduce the gods, and it would be this whole idea about how the gods were worshipped in their time, and then it builds toward my endgame style event. So the Wonder Woman movie introduces the gods, and again updates that power base. Then we get a Superman Wonder Woman movie. I don't know why there's no text here, but it's a Superman Wonder Woman movie. They fall in love, etc. You know, I should put Super Wonder. This is where we see the two worlds coming together. This is her sort of coming into the world of men, and then and then encountering Superman, who is this example of that not all men are terrible, like she was taught as an Amazon and such. And then this is where we start to see multiple heroes per movie. We could see like a Batman and Robin movie, a Batman and Superman movie, which I think would be pretty cool seeing them team up. I don't think we've ever had like a Batman Superman team up movie, but BVS does not count because really that was a Batman movie. Next, we get the Justice League. I would not use like I would not use any of the traditional, I would not use Darkseid for this movie. I would probably use like the Legion of Doom, because here's why I don't want to use Darkseid. First off, it's been done before many times. Second off, it's because when you start off out of the gate with Darkseid, what that sort of does, because Darkseid should be the end game level villain, kind of like Thanos is in this DCU, because I'm trying to make mine different than what they do now. And when you start off with Darkseid, if he's the first villain, you beat, and the Justice League beats him, well, where do you go from here? Because Darkseid's like a dark god, and you really can't go any higher than Darkseid. Then I'm going to pull the Eternals, and then we introduce the new gods. And this movie would take place like in the past and concurrently in the future. So we see like the origin of the universe with the planet breaking apart in Ragnarok, the new gods forming, the new Genesis and Apocalypse, Darkseid, Highfather. We get the origin for Darkseid, and then we get the hint that he's going to be the main bad guy. So that would be my phase one. And this is kind of equivalent to how in the MCU you had like the solo movies, which I'm against saying that you have to have every solo movie before you can have a Justice League movie. I totally disagree with that. It's not a requirement. Now, did that work for the MCU? Yes, but when you have DC characters, well, let me rephrase that. You don't always have to do that. You really don't, because what you could do, if you make the movie long enough, you could actually have character development too, or you could just introduce the character, then hint that they're going to get their own movie and stuff. You don't need to have a movie for Superman, Cyborg, Wonder Woman, Flash, Batman, Aquaman. I'm pointing to my screensaver, and then get a Justice League movie. I wholly, completely disagree with that. And first off, when people bring up the MCU, here is my criticism of that argument that you need to have every single hero get an origin movie. You didn't get one for Black Widow or Hawkeye or the Hulk. Actually, did get one for the Hulk. But my thing is that you got one for Superman, got one for Batman. That's Batman versus Superman counts. You got one for Wonder Woman. That counts. You don't need one for the other three. So that's my point. You don't necessarily need to start with, okay, every single character gets their own movie and then you get the team movie. You really don't. There are ways that you can have the team movie be the introduction where you learn about each character. That's why I think Zack Snyder's Justice League is the superior Justice League movie, because it does that. Granted, it's 4 hours, but you could still do that without it being 4 hours. It's possible for a creative filmmaker and not like creatively bankrupt Marvel and DC. You could do it. Now, that's my DCEU. Now, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Then we're gonna go into a little more backup. So, additionally to this, all right. Now, the reason why I started with Deathstroke also is because I think it's really thinking out of the box if you start with a villain movie and then you introduce the heroes, because with the villain, you could even have my vision for a Deathstroke movie, at least my Deathstroke movie would be, it's the Deathstroke origin, his entire family. Yeah, and now I'm going to go through each of these movies individually and what their stories would be. So for Deathstroke, it would be his origin for like, you see him joining the military, being recruited for this program, him becoming an assassin, him marrying Adelina Kane, having the kids and so forth. You see him lose his eye and stuff. And then he takes on a job in Gotham City. The end of the movie is him facing down Batman. That's it. It doesn't have the actual fight. You can have that pick up in the Batman movie, because my idea would be he would be the bad guy, the antagonist in the Batman movie. I don't think we have enough movies where Batman fights Deathstroke. We have plenty of where he fights the Joker, the Riddler, Two-Face, Ra's al Ghul, Bane, but not enough, I think, when he fights Deathstroke. And then with Batman, the Batman story is, in addition to that, you bring in the Bat family. You can hint that Jason Todd's dead. You bring in Nightwing. You bring in Catwoman. You bring in Damian Wayne would be the Robin in this universe at this point. You hint that like Tim you hint that like Tim and Spoiler are somewhere else because they're together in this universe. In other words, you take the bare minimum. You have a Batman, a Robin, Nightwing. You really have to have a Nightwing, Catwoman, and that's it. You can have Batgirl too, or you can just skip and say this is after the Killing Joke and she's paralyzed and she's Oracle talking in his ear. That's what you need. That's it. You don't need all this tons of stuff. And then through Batman also, you can start to like have scenes where the other characters are starting to pick up that he's tracking these metahuman characters, like he knows of Superman's existence, he knows of Wonder Woman, Flash, Aquaman. In other words, that's a way you can hint at the other characters, and that's the way you can. That's one of the things I liked about that BVS scene where he has on the computer screen, except there wouldn't be Lex Luthor, it'd be Batman. I wouldn't necessarily have the symbols, but I would just have, okay, so here are these characters of files. The file name would be like Aquaman, Cyborg, Flash, and such. The Superman movie, the villain for the Superman movie, I thought a long time on this because, I mean, I don't want to do Brainiac because they always do him. DCEU already did Zod, so I'm not going to do Zod. So my villain, it's not going to be Batman. I'm not doing another BVS because that is annoying as hell. I'm not going to do Doomsday either because I'm not doing another Death of Superman. The villain, I think, what would be pretty cool would be Lobo. I would do a Lobo movie where he shows up and he's hunting like someone close to Superman, like maybe Superman's son. Why would there be a bounty on Superman's son? I'm not writing this movie yet. And then this puts Superman in a position, well, not his son because Superman ends up with Wonder Woman, but it would be someone close to Superman or even Superman himself. There's a bounty. And then this is basically turning into an animated movie, Men of Tomorrow, which is interesting. Actually, I would do, not Lobo, I would do Lex Luthor because here's why. You can have like, you can make this movie also a allegory to like the media, in that Lex Luthor in this universe is like beloved by the media, and he starts to turn people against Superman. At the end of the movie, it doesn't work out for Lex. Superman exposes him and such. Next up, the Wonder Woman movie would be her origin and her learning about the gods, learning about her true parentage. In this, she's the god. She's the demigod child of Zeus. Then you have her like learning about man's world and what a air quotes warlike and barbaric place it is. And then the end of the movie would be her leaving for man's world. And that's where we get to the Superman Wonder Woman, where she's fighting a villain, just some random character, or like Doomsday shows up. Well, not Doomsday, sorry. There's this big massive event, maybe Brainiac invades, or like some big character. And she's fighting, she meets Superman. We have the whole "you're strong, I know" line. And then they slowly fall in love and all that stuff. And then that's how you introduce those characters. Then the Justice League movie, again, Legion of Doom, not doing Darkseid, because that's been done too many times. I feel like if I want my Justice League movie to stand out, can't do that. So Legion of Doom, my roster would be Lex Luthor, not the Joker. That's just a terrible decision. Lex Luthor, Deathstroke, either Deathstroke or the Riddler. For Wonder Woman villains, probably can't see Ares teaming up with her. Probably Cheetah, Ocean Master, maybe Grid, and E.R. Barthon. For the Justice League lineup, it's pretty much Zack Snyder's lineup, except for I would add in Green Lantern and Martian Manhunter. That's it. and Hawkgirl. That's that way you can have the actual league there. And then the plot is that the Legion is trying to open the portal to Apocalypse. So you hint that Darkseid's there, but he's not the main villain. They're trying to like destroy the Justice League. And they're trying to ingratiate themselves. Well, they know Darkseid is like it coming, but they want to make sure it can survive or something like that. I haven't really worked that out. But my point is that Darkseid's not the main antagonist in this Justice League movie. It's them. And the Justice League have heard of a being that's like so evil, because Wonder Woman's immortal. She would have heard of Darkseid at some point. So she says, hey, we cannot let them do this. It ends with them seemingly being defeated, but a signal is sent out. And that's how we get to the New Gods movie, which would, yes, take place in the past too. The reason I want to see this is because I don't think we've seen a live action depiction of the origin of Darkseid. We've never seen him as Euxis, kill the other New Gods, take over their powers, and then become Darkseid. We've never seen, like, in live action, the deal of Highfather and Darkseid switching kids. I would also bring in Justice League 2 would be basically Darkseid War. That's when Darkseid invades, and then it would basically be kind of like Zack Snyder's Justice League. That's when I would bring in Darkseid. And then Justice League 3, the post credit for Justice League 2 would introduce the Anti-Monitor. In other words, phase 2 would be slowly introducing the idea there's a multiverse, then you get the Anti-Monitor. Then Justice League 3 would be Darkseid versus Anti-Monitor. It'd basically be the Darkseid War comic. Then the Green Lantern I would use, because phase 2, the first movie, would be Green Lantern to introduce space. I would use either Jessica Cruz or Jon Stewart. I wouldn't start with Hal Jordan because, once again, he's had a movie. I want to give characters that haven't really gotten movies yet their own movies. And then I would still have Hal Jordan like as a background character. But I would make sure it's like, I would mainly go with Jon Stewart because he's more well-known and beloved than Jessica Cruz. You can fight me on that, but it's true. Justice League Unlimited made Jon Stewart a household name. Then at the end of Justice League 3, I would have the Flash reverse everything, and then we restart. In other words, I would have the movies go on for like 3 phases, and then Flashpoint resets everything. I wouldn't have like these movies go on for years and years and years and years and years, because it gets convoluted at that point. And eventually, here's what the MCU could run into in the future. When you go on for so long without a reboot, eventually it becomes too hard for new fans to get into it, because it's like, I have to watch like 30 movies in order to be caught up for the one that's coming out next week. It makes no sense. Eventually, I feel like eventually the MCU is going to do a reboot and then just say, okay, we're starting from one. We may not start with Iron Man, but we'll see what happens. Eventually they'll do that. And then that's kind of the plan with the DCEU. I feel like Flashpoint's going to reboot everything and like set everything back on course. I personally think more towards Snyderverse. Let me put it this way. If Barry goes back in time and Flash and comes back now and the Superman's in the black suit, you know they restored the Snyderverse. Or like they're making Zack Snyder's universe the main one. But anyway, not going to get into a whole Snyderverse tangent. That's for a future episode when we defend the Snyderverse. I think that'd be a fun thing to do. But eventually I would so I would do the reboot. That's my DCEU, and then it resets, and then we can do like all these different movies. Maybe we can start with Wonder Woman. Maybe we can start with Flash, or a Cyborg movie, or an Aquaman movie, in fact. I would also have if I were to do a Flash movie, I would take more elements from Flashpoint, like how the Amazons and Atlanteans at war with each other. I would bring in Thomas Wayne Batman as the Batman, because I think that'd be really cool. I would basically adopt the Flashpoint movie. That's it. That's the Flashpoint movie that reboots the continuity. Do it like the New 52. There you go. And then, so in terms of my actors, it's pretty much the exact same we have now. And then once we reboot, I would cast younger actors, because essentially I'm going from pre-New 52 to New 52. That's eventually how I would basically build off of the actor. That's essentially how I would cast my DCEU, because I think everyone's fine pretty much the way it is. And then short of like, I wouldn't have a Birds of Prey movie. I wouldn't have all these filler movies. Every movie I have has to serve a purpose that contributes directly to the plot. Not like, wouldn't do a Birds of Prey movie whatsoever, because that doesn't contribute to the plot. You can have those characters show up briefly in a Batman movie, but if it doesn't contribute to the plot, it's not going in there, because again, that gets it convoluted. If I were to bring in like Black Canary, I would have her use her powers more than once. I would have Cassandra Cain actually be Cassandra Cain, actually be what's her name, Orphan, and not be a pickpocket. I cannot believe that was a choice that a studio made. As you can see, I'm really pissed off about that. Additionally, what I would do is I would, let me see, and then after the reboot, I would change the lineup of the Justice League. I've thought about this already. I would have Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. You kind of have to have those three on the team. But I would have Booster Gold. He gets a movie. I would love to have a Booster Gold movie. And then I'm trying to give DC characters that don't get movies their own movie. Martian Manhunter would still be on the team, because you kind of need. I would basically build it into Justice League Unlimited. That would actually be a good idea. Justice League Unlimited movie. That's live action. That basically, my next couple of Justice League movies after the Darkseid War one would deal with different Justice League Unlimited teams, because that way what you could do is you could explore having all the team dynamics of all these different characters. You could have Booster Gold and Batman. Green Arrow and Batman would be hilarious. That way you get more variety in terms of team dynamic. You get more characters, because that's another thing. One of my complaints with the MCU, my main complaints, that was pretty much all Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man movies. That's it. That's pretty much all it turned into, except for like phase Endgame had, where they started doing new movies, and like the Black Panther phase and everything like that. So I was fine with that, but most of it is all this. Because take away Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America movies, what do you have? You lose 9 movies. I would put more, and I would invest more in characters that I have faith in, even if they're not really well-known characters. Because if you hire the right minds, as we saw with like James Gunn and Guardians of the Galaxy, you can take any property and eventually get the audience to like it. In other words, I would bring in like a Booster Gold movie, and even though he's not really a well-known character, I would make it so he's well-known by giving him a movie. If I wanted to do a Black Superman movie, I would use Calvin Ellis or Val Zod, any one of the pre-existing really dope characters, instead of just race, because I'm not going to do any of that, because what that does is it cheapens the value of those other characters. I would do 100%. Well, let me put it this way. I'm already going to have a representation, because I have Jon Stewart, Wonder Woman, and then maybe eventually I would do it like a Donna Troy movie in phase, like, see, that'd be phase 4. Phase 4 and on is not going to be Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman movies. It's going to be a lot of other different movie characters. Just that way, more characters get their own thing. They'll still exist. The Trinity and like the original Justice League will still exist in the background. Just my idea is that try and make as many other characters like mainstream as you can, because you could do this. Wonder Woman was not nearly as popular as she is today since the movies. And Iron Man was not as well known. None of the Avengers were anything near the popularity that they are today. It's because of the movies. So once again, you could do it if you have the right creative team. And unfortunately, one of the mistakes is that these studios keep putting their movies in the hands of creatively bankrupt people, like the writer of Black Widow, who said she couldn't figure out a way to have the male Taskmaster show up in the Black Widow movie. And I'm like, he could be a trainer of the Black Widows. You really could do it that way. It's that simple. That's how you have him there. And then they just tell him, hey, we'll pay you extra if you bring in Natasha. There you go. He's a mercenary. He'll do it for money. Mission accomplished. That's it. Then in terms of if I wanted to do a comedy movie, I would do probably a Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, a buddy cop movie, and make it like Falcon Winter Soldier, kind of in that tone. because they have their own pre-existing like comedic like book, and I think that'd be really funny. In terms of, let's see, if I wanted to like do one that explores more of the mythology, we could do an old gods movie, which is basically Clash of the Titans, or like a Greek gods movie, but in the DC universe. And then my Endgame style one, my final movie of this of the next couple of phases would be, and this is something I've thought about a long time, the Justice League going to war with the Greek gods, because my whole idea of a plot is that the Greek gods become jealous of the Justice League's like love and adoration that the people give them, that the gods used to have back in ancient Greek times. So Zeus is manipulated into declaring war on the world, and then the gods fight the Justice League. The JL lose, and the world is like taken over by the gods. Each of the leagues are like the league members are like scattered to the high winds. Superman is put in like Hades because that way no sun, and he slowly becomes like the emaciated Flashpoint Superman. Batman's on the run. He's the only one that's not like captured. Aquaman is like in the desert or something like that. Flash is like forced to perpetually run, kind of like in Darkseid War. Wonder Woman is chained in Olympus as a trophy, and I don't know what Cyborg would do, but you would have the Justice Batman waging a guerrilla war against the gods and trying to recruit the Justice League again. That would be my like plan for the DCEU. Now, in terms of, let's see, what else do I want to do? Let's do my Marvel movies. Which one would I do for Marvel? I would start off again with Taskmaster. No, actually, not Taskmaster, because if you want to get people to watch it, you have to start off with like I'd start off with a well-known character from Marvel. I would start off, honestly, probably I would start off with Iron Man, because I think they did a good job starting off with Iron Man and making it grounded. Then I would upgrade to like characters such as Thor, and then slowly you get these and then you build up. Basically, the MCU wouldn't change that much, except to be less Iron Man, Captain America, and all those movies. They wouldn't get sequels. In other words, you'd have an Iron Man movie, then you'd say more about their stuff in other movies. But I wouldn't do like 8 Iron Man movies, Thor, Captain America. I would give other characters their time to shine. Now, I get that the reason why they did it back then is because Marvel didn't have the rights to like all their top characters, so they had to keep pumping out these characters. But once again, this is my problem with Marvel, is that they did that too much. There were so many we should have gotten a Black Widow movie earlier, but I get they didn't have faith in a female-led superhero movie, even after Wonder Woman like destroyed in the box office. I would additionally, I would have a Namor movie, and then I would have would I try Fantastic Four as my first? No, I would introduce the X-Men. Now that we have the rights, but I would do it in such a way where it's not like overwhelming, the idea of mutants. Because what I would do is I would have like a character, let's say Iron Man crashes in Krakoa. I'm doing in the Hickman era X-Men. That's why the X-Men were never there, were ignored until then. Because what happens is they're on the island, and like in Wonder Woman, where Themyscira is like concealed, Krakoa is like concealed from the world. Somehow we'll figure out a way to make that work. And then he crashes for some reason. It could even be Captain America, or someone crashes on Krakoa. And that's how we get the idea of the mutants. And only a select few mutants know there's an outside world too. I know, like Wonder Woman. But the idea is that a few of them go there, wreck the world, and then abuse their powers, and that's how you get the animosity towards specifically mutants, and they would call them Krakoans. That's where you get that animosity, and be able to justify how the X-Men are hated, even though they're heroes, but the Avengers are loved, and they're heroes. That would basically be my way of sort of, partly at least, reconciling that blatant contradiction when it comes to the two teams and their role in the Marvel universe. Now, additionally, would I do an Avengers movie for my first team? Probably. And then in terms of Avengers roster, I would change it up a little bit. I would have Captain America. I would have Iron Man. but I would have She-Hulk for one thing as my Hulk character. I would have, let's see, who else would I have that I think would be a really cool character to have on the team? Probably, except for Captain America, I would have the Bucky Barnes Captain America. Somehow I would arrange it in like the Captain America movie. I would have Civil War a little earlier, and then have all the characters show up. That's how you get all these different characters. That's how you introduce all these different characters. You do it in like a massive event that's like not really a team, but it's it's not really a team movie, but it's involving like a lot of different Marvel characters that we can then spin off and see what people are talking about. So it would be Bucky Barnes, Captain America. I would also have like War Machine as the Iron Man character on the Avengers team. And then I would have, let's see, She-Hulk for one thing, because I love She-Hulk. I would have, actually, instead of War Machine, I would have Punisher War Machine. The Punisher exists in my universe. I want the Punisher. Would I have Thor? Yeah, I would have Thor and Thor Odin's son. And then I would have Hyperion. Actually, no, Hyperion is going to be in the Squadron Supreme movie. I'm going to have a Squadron Supreme movie. And then I would have, let me see. So I have Captain America. I have Punisher War Machine, She-Hulk. Then I would have, let's see, what else? Who else would I have? Ghost Rider. I would have probably Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider. Yeah, I'm fine with Robbie Reyes. And then I would have, so it's kind of like Jason Aaron's lineup, except I wouldn't have Captain Marvel. She in no way plays into this. And when Captain Marvel comes in, she will be Miss Marvel. And then I would have, or here's a better name, Warbird. I would have her be Warbird. That's so much better. Then I would have, I'm trying to look at my Marvel action figures to see who else would I throw on there. I would put maybe Tony Stark Iron Man so I can have multiple Iron characters on the team. That would be my Avengers lineup. That's it. It's more simple. So it's so, and then we would have with Thor, he'd be the king of Asgard at this time, so he has to balance those two relationships. Same. Would I have Namor? No, Namor would be on the X-Men, I think. Now my X-Men team would be Emma Frost, Cyclops, Wolverine, Namor, Nightcrawler, because you always need a teleporter, and then Beast would be like at the headquarters providing logistical support. Let's get my water. Then in terms of, let's see, who else? In terms of my villains, I would have a villain movie. I would start with Taskmaster now, because that, and I would have the Tony Masters, the comic accurate Taskmaster, not the mute character they had in Black Widow. They completely butchered the original character. I don't care what the gender swap. All I care about is that they didn't make her at all. It's a completely different character, which they could easily fix. I'm waiting for them to do so. So I would have Taskmaster, and it would basically be our introduction to like the world of the villains, because what he would be doing is he'd be training like the armies of Hydra and AIM and such. Would I do a Hydra movie? Nah, I wouldn't do a Hydra movie. Hydra would not be a thing in my universe, because I feel like they kind of overplayed it too much. I would have a Shield movie actually before Taskmaster. And this is the Taskmaster origin. It'd be a Shield movie about Tony Masters at his time as a Shield agent, and then it ends with him becoming Taskmaster. And then we get the Taskmaster movie, and then my next villain I would give a movie to would have to be Loki. He's popular. I like the Loki series. I think he could do really well. That's it. And then we would get like a Doctor Doom movie to basically implicate that we're going to do like the Masters of Evil and such. Then I would have a movie where the Avengers and the Masters fight, and then that would cause a dimensional rift in the multiverse, and then that's where we get in the Squadron Supreme, and it'd be the Squadron Supreme from the awesome run by Grunwald, where it's like Hyperion, Power Princess, the Wizard, all those different characters. And then they would fight the Avengers. That we get Justice League versus Avengers, basically. In terms of, and then we get another Shield movie, except this one's going to be like an Agents of Shield-ish movie. Except it's not going to be any of the characters from the show, because those characters got annoying after a while. It would basically be like Nick Fury, Maria Hill, Black Widow and Hawkeye. It'd be like a Shield task force. It basically be like a cop movie, but with those four characters as the head. Then the main villain that I would build to would probably be either Galactus, because I want it to be a really big villain. I don't want to do Thanos because they already did that. I would do either Galactus or Kang. He would be one of my main bad guys. Or actually, you know what? I wouldn't even do that. I would, since I already brought in the Squadron Supreme to the multiverse, I would do a Secret Wars movie. And then that way, at the end of it, you can determine how the new continuity afterwards is going to be. In other words, with my superhero franchises, both DCEU and MCU, my versions are going to reboot every so often so it doesn't get too convoluted and too much like you can't really get into the character, into the plot, because you have to watch like 80 movies in the past. That's what I think is going to happen with the MCU, is that they're going to run into that issue eventually. And then eventually, here's what I would do. I would figure out a way to do a DC versus Marvel movie. That's it. I would have the Justice League, the actual Justice League, go up against the Avengers. And it'd be my Justice League versus my Avengers. But still, I still think the Justice League would be taken out, and we did an episode on this. I mean, my Avengers would be taken out. Either way, any Avengers roster is going to be taken out because the Justice League have too many God-level characters. They just do. You can argue that the Avengers are powerful all you want. It's not going to happen because, let me put it this way. My Superman will destroy anyone. Not destroy, but like incapacitate. I don't want to say Superman would kill. My Superman would probably not be placed in a position to kill, even though he would do it. My Batman would kill people because that's what Batman does in the movies too. I would establish that he tries not to, but he's willing to do so if he's pushed to that point. I'm going back to DC. And then Wonder Woman would do it because she's a warrior. Aquaman would do it. Basically, the only one that would not kill people would be Superman, if he can avoid it. Once again, all my superheroes would not kill people if they can avoid it. If they can't, well, sorry. And that's how I defend Superman snapping Zod's neck in Man of Steel. And then my next movie, going back to Marvel. I know I'm jumping around back and forth. Going back to Marvel, what I would do is after the reboot, I would start with a Punisher movie. Start grounded and work your way back up. That's the way I would do all my superhero franchises every phase. Start grounded and work your way up to like the really powerful characters, because that way it's not like, oh my gosh, you have this god level character all of a sudden. I'm gonna build. Eventually, you'd get a Warbird movie, but I wouldn't exactly push onto it because I wouldn't bring in Warbird or Carol Danvers at all because her character history is like terrible. I would find some other way. I would bring in Monica Rambeau if I want to do a Captain Marvel movie. That's how I would do it. I wouldn't bring in any of that. No. That's basically how I would do my two superhero franchise movies. It's not too complicated, I don't think. It wouldn't take too long. And I think it would be easy to get into because what it allows for is a certain point, you can jump in. After any of my reboots, you can jump right in. It wouldn't, in other words, the other movies would be gone. And obviously we would. What I'm saying is that at a certain point, my superhero worlds would end, and then it picks up a brand new story with a bunch of movies tied to it. Brand new story, bunch of movies tied to it, and then that way you don't have to be that one person that has to watch like every MCU movie in order to get really caught up on the movies. That's my mistake. That's my my point. And then once again, for the MCU, would I do an Avengers movie almost immediately? I wouldn't do it because here's why. It worked for Marvel, so I'm not going to screw around with that formula so much. It worked for Marvel. My mind would work for the way DC did it, was going to do it, work for DC. And in other words, in the Snyderverse, it worked for DC because actually, here's what Snyder did. He did Man of Steel. He started off with a non-grounded character. Well, he tried to ground Superman in reality, so I guess he kind of did that. But in Batman versus Superman, he introduced the idea of these League members, and then he uses his Justice League movie to introduce them. That's why people loved it so much. That's one of the reasons why the Snyder Cut is so great. Hashtag restore the Snyderverse. But in terms of I would do it differently for DC and Marvel. In other words, how I would do like superhero team movie. I would do like for Marvel, I would do character team, because you know what, it worked for Marvel. For DC, I would do character maybe team. I wouldn't wait so long for a team movie. And then I would make sure that we stayed to that plan. Doesn't matter if they have an Avengers movie, we don't have a Justice League movie. Doesn't matter. Just go with it. You know what? When we do a Justice League movie, when it makes sense for the storyline, we'll make it better. That's it. That's my philosophy for this. That's the only way that you can conceivably do this right. Additionally, let's see, what else would I do? Okay, and then I would bring in like I would make sure to have lots of like Easter eggs for like from both the comic books and previous worlds. And in other words, what I would do is I would make sure that like I would make my movies basically a scavenger hunt, kind of like Zack Snyder does in his movies, where you could find small details from like the comic books and stuff, mostly the comic books, that would make the movie more of an engaged experience. That's why I love Zack Snyder's movies. He does that. You have to watch the movies really slow in order to catch everything that pops on screen, because there's so much that you can miss. Anyway, that's my DCEU. That's my MCU. I think it's a good place to leave this topic. Let me know in the comments or on email at comicsleague2020@gmail.com if you agree with me on what my movies would be, or if you want to put a comment in there talking about what your DCEU or MCU would be. I'm very interested to seeing what you guys come up with, because it's a community. I love seeing what you guys do. Anyway, like I said before, this week we're going to be getting right back onto the schedule, which is going to be like, hopefully Tuesday is going to be the release of the new Halo show, which I'm going to review Halo Infinite Story. I'm going to try and get Tyler on so we can talk about it. And then let's see, I'm going to Tuesday I'll get Tyler on. Wednesday is going to be a pretty good X-Men show. I'm going to be looking at, I'm still trying to figure out the X-Men show, what I want to do with that, but it's going to be a good episode, I'm sure. I always have good episodes. You all know that. And in terms of Under Two Capes is going to be like, we're probably going to do something Spider-Man related, because the movie's coming out. So that'll be interesting. We may do a review. We'll see. But yeah, that's what we got planned. If you guys have any ideas for like episodes that you want to see, email us. Go to our website. You can get in touch with us that way. The email will be on the YouTube channel, the Instagram, whatever you want to use. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And I hope to see you guys for our exciting week of episodes. Anyway, stay heroic, everyone. Bye-bye.